Welcome back to the Growth Show. I'm your host, Whitney Bateson, and today I'm thrilled to introduce Kirsten Deuman, a former student of the Wellness Pro website system, onto the podcast. So Kirsten is a registered dietitian nutritionist, and she is the founder of RD Nutrition Policy and Research LLC. So her consulting business helps national health and science organizations advance research, policies, and programs that promote food and nutrition security and health equity. She specializes in translating complex nutrition research into clear, actionable insights for key audiences like consumers, health professionals, and policymakers. And she does a great job explaining even more about what she does when we get into the episode today. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking about how Kirsten started her consulting business, the kind of work that she does, the things that she's learned about consulting, and just all the good stuff. You've heard me talk about consulting a little bit on the podcast before with some prior guests, and Kirsten just does a great job of adding even more depth to what consulting is about and how it could be something that you might be interested in. And we also talk about her website and networking and community and all of the things that really are things that she credits to her success as she's been running her business now for 3 years. So let's get into the conversation. Hi, Kirsten. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad to have you here with us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to chat with you.
Yeah. So I'm excited for this topic. I would love to start off by having you share what you're currently doing in your business and what inspired you to start your consulting business.
Absolutely. So I started my consulting business in January of 2023. This was a time of a lot of changes in my life. I had just gotten married. My husband and I had moved from North Carolina, where we were living at the time, and moved back home to Wisconsin to be closer to our families. So I'd kind of reached this pivotal moment in my life and in my career where I could really make a decision about what was next for me. And with moving to Wisconsin, I knew that there really weren't going to be a lot of in-person job opportunities for me working in research and policy, which is really where my passions lie. So I knew that I needed to find something that would be fully remote. And it just happened to be perfect timing that an opportunity to work as a consultant presented itself. And so that allowed me to work remotely and still use the skills and the passion that I had. So the idea of being a consultant was of interest to me. It was something that I had thought about prior to that moment, but I didn't think it was something that I would actually pursue until like 10, 15 years down the road. I didn't think it was a right now thing, but I decided to take a chance and went down the consulting route, and I haven't looked back since. But as far as what I'm doing now as a consultant, I focus on working with national health and science organizations that seek to advance research, policies, and programs that promote food and nutrition security and health equity. So I would say that my specialty or my niche is really translating and communicating nutrition research and evidence to key stakeholder audiences, including consumers, health professionals, and policymakers. So I really try to help researchers and organizations strategize the most effective ways to package and share their research findings with the goal of informing evidence-based programs, policies, and practices. So I do this through 3 key services, which are research support, technical writing, and educational writing. There's this really disappointing quote or statistic that you've probably heard that it takes like 17 years for health research to be translated into practice.
Oh, I have not heard that one before. Oh, and that is really sad because a lot can change during that time too.
Absolutely. The science and the evidence changes over that time. And so I just think that we should be working better at trying to translate the research and the evidence at a faster rate. So that's really what I'm trying to do as part of my business, is being a solution to decreasing the amount of time that it takes for that research translation to occur.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I really kind of hadn't connected those dots before. Just like, yeah, there's all this research coming out, and like you'll read an article, but not knowing really that like, yeah, that research had been worked on for years, and there had been new things that had been thought about, but it would be great if that could be put into policy and communicated into consumer messages or whatever the case may be a lot faster. And I love that you're bridging that gap and solving that problem of like, okay, I understand the research, but I also understand what it takes to get people to actually listen to, pay attention to, implement the research, and I'm going to help you connect the dots and hopefully shorten that timeline.
Yes,
Basically what you're
exactly.
doing. Okay.
Exactly. Yep.
I love it. That's great. And I love that and we had another consultant on the podcast a while ago, Milton Stokes, and he had a similar story in terms of like the consulting kind of starts as just one contract, and
Mm-hmm.
then it's up to you to decide, do you like this or not? And then if you do, you just kind of build and build over time, it sounds like.
Yes, that is exactly what happened for me as well. And maybe that's the way it happens for a lot of people. I'm not sure. But yeah, I had this one opportunity that I knew it wasn't full-time work, but I thought I'm going to try it out, see if I like it. It was in a specific focus area that I was really interested in. And once people learn that you're starting consulting, word kind of gets around and you start getting referrals from other consultants because there's so much work to do, but not enough people to do the work. And
Uh-huh.
so you just start getting referrals from people. And that's really how I've gotten all of my projects and clients, which has been really amazing, and has made it a lot easier for me than it probably would be for someone who, let's say, is doing counseling and has to find individual clients constantly.
Mm-hmm.
My clients and projects are longer term. So sometimes they might be like 4 to 6 months or a year, and
Mm-hmm.
they get extended. So I have a client that I'm going on year 3 with right now, and another client that I'm going on almost 2 years with. So that part
Mm.
has been really nice too, to have those long-term relationships. That's been
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah, absolutely. I know for many business owners, some stability is always nice and all of that. And it does lengthen that amount of time that you necessarily need to be going out and finding new clients and all of that.
Yeah.
But we were talking even before we hit record, and it does require some patience though in the consulting world, because yes, that contract is maybe 2 years and it's wonderful, but it could have taken 6 months to a year to get it all worked out and finalized and approved. So the lead time you need to be giving yourself on some of these things is also a little bit longer, maybe sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was a big thing that I learned pretty quickly, is that a lot of times there's a specific need and that client wants you to start working right away. Like they need you now, but you do have to set up a contract. You have to figure out the scope of work. You have to agree on the timeline, the services you're providing, how much you're getting paid, all of these different things. And then if you're working with a big university, there's a lot of other things that go into the contract that the
Mm-hmm.
university might require, like business insurance, professional liability insurance, so many things. And
Mm-hmm.
so that process of just like starting the conversation with the potential client through finally executing and signing the contract has
Mm-hmm.
taken anywhere from 4 to 6 months to a year in some cases.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be a little frustrating, but at the same time, I've been really lucky in the clients that I've worked with, in that I trust them, and that when we decide on this is what the work is going to be and we develop the scope of work, I do get started on the work prior to the
Mm-hmm.
contract being executed, but that's a something not all consultants might feel comfortable with. And so it's
Yeah.
situation based for sure.
Yes, yes, definitely. Like you mentioned, that trust and just kind of getting that feel of, okay, or maybe there's been a prior relationship and it's a new contract. It's like,
Yep.
okay, we'll do that. But yeah, you can hear many people of stories being burned of getting the work done before. But
Oh,
some of these larger organizations, yeah, I don't know. We could go on and on about like, well, it's like, yeah, you really have to do it a case by case basis.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and I like that you mentioned too that you thought that consulting was going to be something you would start doing 10, 15 years down the line. And I'm guessing that maybe part of that was thinking like I need enough experience maybe
Mhm.
or something to that effect.
For
Um
sure.
yeah.
Yes. And the people that I knew that were working in the consulting space had much more experience than me, many more years under their belt. And so I think that was also why I thought, like, this isn't something that I can be doing now. It's something I should do later on in my career. The
Mhm.
other thing was that the reason why I kind of started thinking about consulting too was I knew that there was a lot more flexibility there in terms of how much you want to work, when you want to work, who you want to work with. And so just thinking long term in my life of like someday having kids and wanting to have that flexibility, that sounded like a great thing to me. But yeah, I do think that I didn't think it was a right now thing because there's that confidence behind like, do people actually think of me as an expert? Do I actually know what I say that I know? And that imposter syndrome kind of that you have to get over. And I'm sure a lot of business owners and other people, even if you're not a business owner, you feel that
Yep.
all the time.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I think so many people listening probably can resonate with that idea. And I would say, yeah, if you're just starting coming out of your internship or out of your degree, maybe get some experience because it also just helps you with learning kind of how to be a professional and how to organize yourself and even helps you build up your network and all of that. But there's no right number in terms of years of experience. And you can get started and you can build that experience while being a consultant or subcontracting to a consultant who
Right.
needs someone to help them, but you don't necessarily need to be full blown, setting up your own shop yet or something like that.
Yes, there's so many options. You could go into consulting right away, do it full time. You could do it part time, like still keep your full time job and just have some small projects on the side to dip your toes in the water. I think there's so many options and ways to do it that you can really choose your own adventure.
I love it. So, what are some standout projects that you've worked on throughout your consultancy that you're really excited about or just memorable?
Yeah, so I would say what's really exciting is that every project and client that I work with, it looks a little bit different. The services that I provide are a little bit different. So I have a client that I've worked with for going on 3 years now. And what I do with them is really focusing on the research translation part of the work that I do and the technical writing. So they are a research institute. They have their own research that's being done. And so they really wanted me to focus on translating their research into different products that they can use to share with their key stakeholders and audiences like policymakers and federal agencies. So what I really do is take what's been published in a journal article and I turn it into a fact sheet or a report. I've written a lot of public comments to submit to federal agencies in response to proposed rules, helped with planning research briefings on Capitol Hill. So there's so many different ways that you can go about sharing the information. It's just really knowing how to strategically package it in a way that the people you want to know and learn from it are going to be interested and are going to take what you want to take from it and then use that to inform policy or programs or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
So with that client, I'm helping them also plan a food as medicine advocacy day that is happening in March. So I can share more information about that later. But I also have another client that I've been working with for going on 2 years. And this has been a very different project. This is one where I've worked with them through all three areas of my key services. So the research support, technical writing, and educational writing. And so this is with a program called Healthy Eating Research. And Healthy Eating Research has convened an expert panel of 4 organizations: the American Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, the American Academy of Pediatrics, American Academy of Pediatric Dentists, and the American Heart Association to
Oh, wow.
develop expert panel recommendations for what children ages 5 to 18 should drink as part of a healthy diet. And so this was a project that I was involved in from the very beginning, doing the background research, writing up the technical report, developing educational materials and resources that then translated those recommendations into tips that providers like dietitians and primary care providers and nurses can use in their practice. So I'm really, really excited that these recommendations are being released at the end of January 2025. So we can finally share it with the world. It's been a project that we've been working on for a while, and It was a lot of work. So we're all really happy that we're able to share finally.
Yeah, that's awesome. So there's a chance that someone is sharing a resource out there with a client or a patient, and it's something you may have written.
Yes, absolutely. I hope that there are people who are doing that.
Yeah, yeah. Because if you've worked on a lot of stuff, you're like, yeah, I hope that stuff is getting out there and being used, and that's so cool. And yeah, it sounds like it's just a lot of different, not challenges, but different projects and things that you're working on every day. And I think that's really cool to be thinking about, okay, when I'm writing a paper for policymakers, it's different than a paper for consumers or fact
Mhm.
sheets for consumers. So you can be also thinking about, how do I communicate with all these different audiences? What's important to them? And how do I communicate in that way? And I think for so many of us as health providers, that's the key piece, is that we may have the information, but it's how do we translate it into something that someone is going to resonate with and really coming from their perspective.
Yes, absolutely. And I would also add, especially for the consumer perspective, is that having skills in like graphic design is so important. Like, you can't just
Mm,
give them this plain resource that's just full of text and just expect them to sit and read it. Like, it has to be
right.
something that's pretty and colorful and catches their eye and really pulls out the key information that you want them to take from it.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't say that I learned graphic design by any means, like during my dietetics program or grad school, but
Mm-hmm.
just from the different projects that I've worked on, I've built those skills. Canva is like amazing
Yeah.
resource that I've used, but working with graphic designers who are like actual professional graphic designers is a huge resource to have when you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to develop those resources.
Oh, I love you mentioning that, because yeah, that was something that, my first career was in school nutrition, and I was working in DC public schools and we had to educate kids about the salad bar, make sure that they didn't, do bad things in the salad bar, and communicate with parents. And I had to train staff on the new meal pattern regulations.
Mhm.
And I just really realized and felt like I need to make this stuff look attractive. Like, even the training staff who have to come to my training and have to sit through it, whether they like it or not, I want them to actually know how to serve a reimbursable meal. So,
Mhm.
how do I respect the fact that they're seeing attractive things in other places? How do I make sure that I apply that? And I think that that is such a great message. I'm so appreciative that you said that, because even as we're developing websites or lead magnets or opt-ins, whoever's listening, whatever kind of business you have, the fact remains that the quality of information does have to be there, but
Mhm.
people are first making judgments, that snap decision. What does it look like? And if it doesn't look good, whether it's your website or a handout or a presentation, they're not going to want to look at it. They may not trust the information as much. It just doesn't go over so well.
Yes, for sure. It's like judging a book by its cover.
Yeah, it
Exactly.
happens.
Hmm.
So I'm assuming, like, yeah, with policymakers, no, you don't necessarily have to put a bunch of graphics in there, but even then you need to make it look polished
Hmm.
and professional and pulled together, because that's what they're expecting.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, I've worked on fact sheets and policy briefs for advocacy days, and so I know how important it is to like really make sure that you're getting those key pieces on there that you want them to take away from it, and then explicitly saying like what are the implications research and
Mhm.
what do you want them to do with it, because if you don't tell them, they might not know.
Yep. Yeah, it's that call to action, right? Even if you're not trying to get them to buy something or sign up for something, the so what at the end always has to be, what is that next step for you to take?
Yes.
So great. I love it. So you mentioned earlier that you started building your business and getting these contracts from people you knew and your network. And so I'd love to hear from your perspective how important it was to have a strong network of professionals, accountants, financial advisors, website developers, all of that in establishing your business.
Yeah, I didn't anticipate that having that network of professionals was going to be so important to the success of my business, but it's something that I learned pretty quickly when I started thinking about building my business. So a few people in my network that have been so important to me and that I communicate with regularly are an accountant and a financial advisor. And
Mm,
these are people that I had never had relationships with before starting a business. As you know, when you have a business, you have to pay estimated taxes. And so that was a scary thing to me. I had no idea what that meant. Like, when do I pay it? How much do I pay? How do I figure all of that out? And so working with a CPA just to figure that part out was so helpful in the first year. Now that I'm going into my third year, I feel a little more self-sufficient there, but I still use the CPA for that when I need to, because I don't want to make any mistakes. The other person is a financial advisor. And just full disclosure, my husband is a financial advisor, but he did not start until I had started my business. So we're kind of on the same timeline of starting our businesses.
mhm,
And so I tell him all the time, I'm like, I had no idea that you were actually going to end up being a resource to me in starting my business, because when you start a business, you don't have your employer sponsored retirement options
mhm,
anymore. So you have to figure out like creating your own retirement account, and if you have employees, setting up an account for them, and how do you do that? Like, where do you even start with that? And
mhm,
so my financial advisor has been really helpful in getting that started with me.
mm,
The funny thing is that the CPA and the financial advisor talk to each other regularly, and they're like making sure that things are working right on both ends of the spectrum. Like, the taxes are getting paid, but the right amount of money is going into the retirement account, and just things are balanced. And honestly, I don't have to think about it, which is really nice. I have other
mhm.
people that are helping me figure it out, and they kind of just tell me what to do.
That's
So,
nice. Yeah,
yes.
that financial piece, getting started. I remember, yeah, I had a business coach who actually helped me through it. I like the book Profit First was something that I definitely used as a resource because I didn't even know how to pay myself. You
Yeah.
know, I wasn't like I didn't have
Yes.
payroll at the time, but I was like, what do I do? And it was like, just transfer money out of your account.
Uh-huh. Yes, such a simple thing, but you're like, I don't want to mess it up. I want to
Yeah.
do it right.
And how much do I take out and how frequently? And
Yep.
yeah, I think it's just it's like it's not embarrassing that you don't know because no one knows.
No.
No one knows until you start doing it.
Yes,
So,
absolutely. And it's not something that you learn in your dietetics program. Like, I never would have even imagined that I would have been starting a business. So why would I have been thinking during my dietetics program that I needed to learn all of these things? So
yeah.
everybody's just learning as they're going.
Mhm. Yep, for sure. Yeah. Well, I love hearing that. It's like just having those trusted advisors and
Mhm.
those people that are kind of helping you out. And so, speaking of, you worked with us to launch your website through our program, the Wellness Pro website system. So, can you share a little bit about how your website has supported your business and your goals?
Mhm. Absolutely. So before I decided that I was going to create a website, I had only been in business for about 6 months. So it was still like very new, but I knew that I needed to develop a website if I wanted to start marketing myself and really start bringing in more clients. And so I learned about your program, and I thought that it was like the best option for me, because I knew like I didn't have the time or the energy to figure out how to create a website on my own. And so, again, another great resource, another professional to bring into my network to help me with my business.
Yeah.
So one thing, I didn't really have like a business plan. I didn't really have a marketing plan. Like, I didn't even really know what my key services were yet at this point.
Hmm.
So that was amazing, as part of your program, was helping me think through all of those things that I just hadn't sat down and thought through quite yet. So
Hmm.
having that all, like, going through the process of thinking through it, but then figuring out how to put it on my website, how to market myself, but then also the hard skills of like actually building the website. Like, those
Yeah.
are great skills to have, and I've used for clients now, helping them build web pages.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
Yeah, it's been really exciting, and I'm so happy that I did it, because I love when somebody asks me about my business or wants to know more about what I can do, and I can just refer them to my website to get more information. And
Yeah.
people can contact me, and it just sends me an email that I can easily respond to them through. So it's definitely made things a lot easier and a lot clearer for me as a
Mm-hmm.
business owner to say, like, here's a resource that I can give you to know everything that you need to know about working with me.
Yep, yep. In a really professional, clear way. And when you update your services or you change things, you know
Mhm.
how to edit the website too. So you don't have to have fear that it's outdated
Mhm.
or, you're sending people suddenly to this place that you're no longer proud of.
For
So
sure.
that's cool. Yeah.
Yes, I just recently spent time over the holidays on my website, like going through each page, like what do I need to update? What do I want to change? Thinking through a plan of like wanting to work more on my blog to really use that as a way to share the work that I do and examples of the services that I provide. So I'm really trying to do a little more of that over the next year, and really just showcasing the work that I do. And
Yeah.
I don't know how I would do that if I didn't have a website, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's that hub, and you can then have all sorts of different things driving traffic to the website, but then at least the
Mhm.
website is that core,
Yes.
source of truth. It's the place where everything lives, where you
Mhm.
can send people to. So that's great. And I think what's interesting and cool too is that you mentioned that a lot of your business or some of your business was coming through your network or referrals or whatever, but it doesn't negate the need for a website. It almost makes it even more important because this person is saying, hey, go check out Kirsten. She might be able to help, or someone else
Mhm.
is sharing your name somewhere. And instead of people having to be like, okay, well, now I have to just contact her and I have no idea what she does, the
Yep.
website supports that.
Yes, for sure. I've had experiences where someone has contacted me and we set up a meeting to talk, and they didn't ask me like any questions about what I do or past clients or anything. And I knew that they had looked at my website, and I thought, wow, they must have gotten all the information that they needed from my website, because I didn't feel like they had to ask me anything. So
That's the
I take
best
that
thing
as a
ever.
win.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Because then that call can really be focused on like, okay, next steps. How can
Yep.
I add value as opposed to regurgitating information that really should have been on the site
Yep.
to help people. I love that. What a great example. Yeah. So anyone out there who's thinking, oh, I can build my business, from referrals and all that, that's wonderful. Continue to do that. But a
Yes.
website can just elevate your efforts even
Mhm.
more rather than be an either or kind of
Mhm.
situation.
Yep. And I've also worked more on building out the testimonial section of my website now that I have more projects and more clients under my belt, and being able to ask clients for their experiences working with you and then putting that on your website for other people to see, like, I think that speaks volumes, because they see the names of other people that they can trust, and they know, okay, this is a person who will bring value to our projects. Other people have had good experiences with them. So I do have to say it can be hard asking for that testimonial, or that recommendation. I don't know why, but maybe it's just like, well, I hope they had a good experience, but obviously they did if they want
Oh,
to.
yeah, we just don't give ourselves enough credit, do we?
We really don't.
Right, because they've been probably paying your invoices and
Yes.
probably told you that they had a good experience. And yeah, so well, definitely I'm glad that you're still asking for the testimonials
Mhm.
and getting that, because yeah, it's so critical for that social proof to be on the site and everything you just said. But yeah, it can be tough, but I think also it's just like with anything, the more you do it, the more
Mhm.
it becomes. And you know what, if they didn't have a great experience, they just won't write one. And then it's like, okay, whatever. But
Exactly.
the people that really loved working with you, I know when someone asked me for a testimonial, and it's funny when I put myself in their shoes. Like, I have a coach that supports me, and she asked me to do like a little video testimonial. And I was like thrilled. I was like,
Yeah.
yes, I love you. I want more people to know about you. I want to sing your praises, like whatever you need, but then when I think about asking people for that, I'm like, oh, I hope it's okay.
Yes. Yes. That's exactly how I felt. And it's like, gosh, I'm asking for them to take time out of their day to do this thing for me. Why would they want to do that?
Right, right. I don't know if you do this, but I also found that like giving some suggested questions or things to cover really
Mhm.
helps. I used to think, oh, then I'm telling them what to say or, whatever. But it's like, it's just like, I remember, asking for a professor's recommendation for a job or into my internship or something. And it's like, if you write the letter for them, they're much more happy with like, okay, I'll edit it if I need to, but
Yeah.
you save me a lot of time. So
Yes.
I think it also helps when you're giving them enough information about what you want that testimonial to cover and
Mhm.
include and some suggested things that they might want to say or do. And then it's like, I don't feel so bad asking for it because I gave them a lot of
Yeah.
kind of ideas of what to cover too. So
Yes, yes, that's a great strategy. I did that a little bit, but also did feel weird, like telling them, like, "Hey, maybe this is what you want to say." But I think it's a great strategy that I will use again in the future.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So then I want to talk a little bit more about like, again, kind of on this theme of network and getting support and pulling people in. And I love what you said about the support that we gave you in the program with like, even just things that you wouldn't think about with a website program, business plan, your services, ideal customer, all of that stuff. Because honestly, when we're building a website, what are we going to put on it? Our services, copy that speaks to our customers. So if you don't have it, then we'll work through it and getting that structure and all of that. So I love that you mentioned that guidance you got. So what other mentors or having mentors and getting other people to give guidance, or maybe you're giving guidance as well, that has shaped your journey as a business owner overall?
Yeah, I think mentorship has been like monumental to my business, to be honest. I've been very lucky to have people in my corner that have very willingly shared information, whether I'm seeking it out or not. I've really tried to build a community of like minded people who are doing similar work and have more experience than I do, just to have those people to turn to. These were people who were already in my network, but I know that there's other places to find them, like through the academy, through dietetic practice groups, through LinkedIn, just reaching out to people cold, just sending a message and saying, "Hey, I really like the work that you're doing. Can we talk? Can I learn more from you?" But I can remember very clearly when I first decided to start my business, there were things that I had to do, like submitting paperwork to establish the LLC and getting a bank account set up. And one of my mentors was amazing. She sent me an email with literally step by step instructions of the things that I needed to do. And I just think that type of knowledge sharing is so crucial. And I hope that at some point I also have the opportunity to give that same level of support to other people who are maybe trying to go in the same direction, but just have no idea where to start, because like it feels like you're jumping off the deep end and you're just like trying to get information from wherever you can. And so having people in your corner who are like willingly there to help
Yeah.
you and support you is amazing, and it's so crucial.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I will say you're doing some of that right now by sharing all of your wisdom today. So, yay for that. Yeah, I think having that like brain trust of people that you can tap into, and it's at
Mhm,
different stages of your journey. There's different people who
mhm.
know different things. And I actually have like a little virtual sticky on my desktop that kind of has just like that short list. I'm very bad at staying in touch with people. That is definitely like a skill I lack. And I just forget. So it's like reminding myself of here are some wonderful people. And even just recently, I was like, oh, yeah, they would be great for coming on the podcast or whatever it is. It's like, yeah, it's like remember that there are people out there and they're very happy to help.
Mhm.
And I love that advice too, because when I was getting started, even as I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my career in dietetics, I wasn't really sure. And so it was I think any opportunity is a great opportunity to go out and seek that advice, but especially when
Mhm.
you're in a transition, you can kind of use that to your advantage. Like, I'm an intern trying to figure out what I want to do, or I'm a
Yeah.
student trying to figure out what, or I'm about to launch my business and I'm not sure.
Mhm.
Any of those are great, but any time is great. And to just have those conversations with people. When people reach out to me, I'm happy to talk
Yep.
and just give my perspective. I mean, that's one of the greatest pieces of flattery, if someone else asking for like, what's your knowledge? What advice can I get from you? So the people that are willing to give it will be just so happy to give it. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the things I did too. And when I first started was I kind of made a list of other people that I saw doing very similar work to what I wanted to do. And I just started reaching out to them and asked them if they would spend 30 minutes just talking to me about how they got started and what they're doing and any advice that they had for me. So that's like a key strategy, no matter what stage you're at in your
Yep.
career, is not being afraid to reach out to other people because yes, like you said, people are always so willing to share, especially when they can share their own story and hope that they can share some takeaways with you that you can use in your journey as well.
Yeah, and they're going to know other people and
Mhm.
why do you think like it is so critical, especially in our field, to be building like that mentorship or and community of people sharing kind of knowledge and all of that?
Yeah, I think, well, as a business owner specifically, it can be pretty lonely at times, especially if you're just a team of one. And so day in and day out, you're just kind of working on your own. Sometimes you might have meetings with some of your clients, but until you start really building your team, like you are on your own. And so having that community of people that can support you and surround you and that you can go to is really important, I think, in helping you like staying positive and keep moving forward and knowing that things are going to be okay. I also think that like professional organizations, like working with the academy and being a member of the academy and certain dietetic practice groups has been another piece of community that I've really taken on more as a business owner. For me, the Nutrition Entrepreneurs Dietetic Practice Group has been an amazing resource. They have
Mhm.
so many webinars that are free monthly that
Mhm.
share really great information. There's a newsletter that comes out bi-weekly or by quarterly, I think. I always look forward to reading it because there's
Mhm.
other entrepreneurs who are writing articles in there about what they've learned and what they want to share. And then they also have, I think, small meetings within the dietetic practice group where you can just like join and basically network and talk to other people. And so for me, like I've just had to find ways to build that community. A lot of it has been virtually online. I'm still trying to find ways to build that community locally here where
Mhm.
I live in Wisconsin, which has been a little bit more difficult because there's not many people who do this work in Wisconsin, especially where I live. So it's still a work in progress for me to keep building that community.
Yeah, yeah, it never ends, but yeah, it can be lonely. And so that's a very, very good point, that it's also just about having some people to share those ups and downs with and get that motivation,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the early stages of business. I mean, I still go through my roller coasters of emotions, but I feel like the hills and the valleys are not as deep and
Yeah.
frequent as they used to be. But I definitely needed a lot of help getting getting up those hills at times. So yeah. Well, this has just been wonderful. I want to ask, well, we'll talk about the event that you're working on, but first, what is one piece of advice for anyone looking to start or grow a consulting business that you would want to share with them?
I would say it's just around this sense of community that we've already talked about. Don't be afraid to seek out that advice, that mentorship from other people. Like I said, it can be very lonely. And so just having the confidence to reach out to other people and just ask for their advice, for their mentorship. So many people are willing to do it, even if they don't know you. Like if they know that you have similar interests to them, they're willing to take the time and spend the time with you. So I would say don't be afraid to seek those people out. But then on the other side of it too, don't be afraid to be that person to other people when they reach out to you. I know it does take some time out of your day sometimes to talk with somebody, but I think it's so important. And so when you give it out to other people, you also receive it back to you, which I think is really important.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Great advice. So, how can people let's talk a little bit more about this event that you're planning and if anyone can support it and yeah. So, go ahead.
Absolutely. So if any of your listeners are interested in policy and advocacy, specifically around food as medicine, they might be interested in this Advocacy Day event that's coming up in March. This event is being held as part of my work with the Food as Medicine Institute at the Friedman School of Nutrition, Science, and Policy at Tufts University. So I'm supporting the planning and implementation of this Advocacy Day. It's on Capitol Hill on March 12th, 2025. And so this is a day to visit with key members of Congress and their staff to encourage and inform the advancement of food as medicine priorities in federal policymaking. So attendees will have the opportunity to educate policymakers about the power of food as medicine to transform health, as well as discuss specific legislative priorities to advance food as medicine. And the really nice thing is that we will be providing materials and resources to help attendees prepare for these meetings and to share with the congressional offices. And we're holding virtual live training sessions prior to the event. So you know what the talking points are. You can ask questions if you've never been to an advocacy day before. I've been to a few and I still find it pretty intimidating because I don't do it super often.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's a lot of resources and training available for anybody who might be interested, but maybe is just a little bit unsure about if they have the experience. But I think this is a great opportunity for registered dietitians, especially those who work in the food as medicine space, to really share the work that they're doing and the role of the dietitian in food as medicine.
Yeah.
So the deadline to register is coming up in about a month, February 14th, but you can learn more about this event at the tuftsfoodasmedicine.org website.
Okay. Love it. Thank you so much for that. Yeah. And by the time this drops, we'll have a few days left. So this episode will be going live. So if you hear it and you are interested, make sure that you register for it by the deadline. And yeah, I have to say too, I remember I did my first policy advocacy day way back when I was actually, I think, still an intern. And I was like, am I going to be meeting with Congress people? And sometimes you do, but a lot of times you're meeting with staff. So it's a little less overwhelming. You're not going by yourself. There's other seasoned people that are helping you and there's resources provided. And it is such important work because policy affects so much when it comes to the health of both us and the population. Food policy was one of my passions early on as well. Cause I was like, it touches everything.
Yes.
It's so important. And the work is never done, as we know in policy. It can go back and forth too. Something can be implemented and then changed back. And
yes,
it's always needed. And having experts who are passionate, who can be a resource and who can actually speak to the importance and necessity of whatever it is the asks are, is just, it really adds a lot of credibility to the movement and supports the work that you're all doing behind the scenes to kind of, okay, what's the research? What's all of that? And then having people to advocate for it. So very cool opportunity. And it's great to meet someone who's organizing something like that. And I cannot imagine the amount of work. So thank you as well for just putting in the work to make sure that dietitians and nutrition is a part of the conversation when it comes to public health and policy and all of that.
Yeah, I think it's so important for dietitians to share their stories about the work that they're doing with their clients, especially when you're meeting with your members of Congress, and you can give them specific examples of what people in their state are experiencing and what kinds of supports that they need. And so I think that really brings the message home. Like, we can talk about the research, we can talk about the policies, but until they really hear the stories about the people who are suffering or who need better support, that's really what's going to bring it home for them, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. That personalization. So, well, thank you again so much for your time, Kirsten, and all of the advice and knowledge you shared. And if anyone wants to connect with you further or check out your website or work with you or learn from you, we have all of those links in the show notes as well. So thanks again.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you for listening to today's episode, and a huge thanks to Kirsten for joining us and sharing all of your knowledge with us today. Now, if you are a registered dietitian and in the DC area and would like to go to the Advocacy Day that Kirsten shared about in the episode today, make sure you register. The deadline is February 14th. So in just a few days, go to the link in the show notes to get all of that information. And like she mentioned, they'll be preparing you for it. So you just need to show up, share your experiences, and advocate for nutrition policy. So it's a great event to be a part of. And if this episode with Kirsten has inspired you to finally put your website out into the world for whatever kind of business you are growing or want to grow, now is the time to take action. Hopefully you felt that through what Kirsten shared. So we just closed doors to the program that Kirsten was referring to and talking about, the Wellness Pro website system. But the good news is that you can join the wait list and be the first to know when we reopen the doors. So just head to wellnessprowebsite.com to add yourself to the wait list. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you on the next episode of The Growth Show.